Smita ji, I would say on the contrary. Thanks to the efforts of Indian government, of Prime Minister Modi personally, to ensure the supply chains were kept going even during the lockdown. No food shortages were allowed to happen in the UAE. We said flights were running literally through the day, ensuring adequate food supplies to the UAE. Vaccines were supplied, essential medicines were supplied on dot as per requirement. The gestures of that period have been so widely appreciated that through the pandemic, they took care of every single Indian. 3.5 million of them living in UAE were looked after with love and affection and care by the people of UAE. And during my last 2 days, the amount of love and affection I received for those gestures, the kind of comments that I received on Prime Minister Modi's message 2 days ago when we inaugurated the India Pavilion on the 1st of October, the kind of confidence that businesses in India have shown to invest in India, to grow their businesses with India, is truly very gratifying. And I do believe the last 2 days and today, these would be probably some of the best spent days out of the country in terms of the outcomes when it comes to expanding trade in India, inviting investments in India, creating jobs and business opportunities for people in India, and for showcasing to the world the strengths of a future-ready India under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi.
You did say that, that some businessmen came to you and said that now doing business in India is clean. We don't have to worry about extraneous issues. And the best part is the absolutely clean and seamless implementation. Those are my notes. This is what you encountered. Is this something that is unique that you are seeing in just now with the UAE, or is it something that you have experienced in the past couple of years?
It's been a process. When we came into government in 2014, there was a certain image. And these things is something that businessmen sense. How they have to do business, what are the impediments, how does one have to keep going to government for everything. But post 2014, Prime Minister Modi, through relentless efforts, has tried to change the mindset of the way government works. He's tried to bring in the highest standards of probity and integrity in the government, has done a totally transparent set of policy-driven measures which have been implemented over the last 7 years. And businessmen sense this very fast. They don't need liaison officers in Delhi anymore. They don't need officers roaming around government offices anymore. Mails are good enough and decisions are policy driven, not supportive of one or the other, not discriminating between one or the other. I could sense that has really found a lot of traction in the UAE particularly. And there's a lot of appreciation for the fact that they find rules-based, fair play, transparent business opportunities in India.
You've done a whole lot of interviews with the foreign media while being here and even otherwise. You did say that there's this perception that there's appreciation of the role of bureaucracy. But the international media has said that the Modi government has lost its sheen, it's lost its plot, and there's red tapeism. This accusation of the international media continues. Do you see any change coming about in that at all? Because you see, perception is important, right?
Well, I would not like to comment on any media, but the reality is the investors, the business persons and the people are truly appreciative of these changes that have been happening. They understand that in such tough COVID times also, India met every single international commitment. Our services business, international business, was at 97% level through the COVID year from April 20 to March 21, 97% level. Our goods export was at 94% level of the previous year, even in the worst period of COVID-19. For that matter, Smita ji, in the current year, in the first 6 months, April to September, We have an all-time high export of $197 billion, an unheard of thing in India, against a full year export of $290 billion last year, a growth of probably 40-45%. All of these things are reflective of the growing trust that international businesses have in India, of their interest to engage with India in a deeper way. And therefore, I think the world is talking about it. Those naysayers who have not yet recognized it, I'm sure will recognize it in due course of time.
Piyush, if I may quote you, you said India is ready to take the lead in reviving global growth. And you mentioned quality, productivity, sustainability. You mentioned all those things in that. Would you accept it that maybe it's being a little too ambitious in this post-pandemic era to think that India, with all its, with just about 7.2% growth, that we will be able to lead at all in?
Smitaji, it's not just about 7.2% growth. It's about the rapid recovery post such a humongous problem, a crisis. The whole world suffered COVID-19. It was not as if India alone, the whole world suffered it. Within that, the whole world and their leaders of different countries in the world recognized that Prime Minister Modi's handling of the COVID-19 was among the best in the world. Most practical, the right decision at the right time, ramping up of the needs of the people of India to an extent which nobody in the world had imagined. A country, a developing country like India with limited resources, such large population being able to overcome the crisis that the world was facing. The rapid pace of vaccination has amazed everybody beyond their imagination. In this situation, the world, when it's looking for trusted partners, the world when it's looking for governments which have decisive leadership, governments which are respected around the world, I think Prime Minister Modi's own personal charisma and his personal connect with leaders around the world stands out as an exceptional opportunity for India, Indians and Indian businesses to really expand their role in the world economy. And therefore, I believe that India has a responsibility to lead world growth.
What about our own situation in the sense of world growth? Yes, but increasing employment, farm income especially, with 7.2, it looks hard. I mean, even the UNCTAD report says that even though India is one of the fastest growing economies post-pandemic, we'll probably see a slowing down next year because, buying power not there, the rural economy is being hit, all those things.
I think some of these seem to be assumptions which are not validated by facts. Also, you must bear in mind that when I talk of $197 billion of exports, it's in a 6-month period of which 3 months were the worst time of COVID, April to June, the second wave, and then the next 3 months of rains. So you're aware that usually the first half is slower than the second half. And having this kind of a growth in this period with so many challenges is itself reflective of the resilience of the Indian economy and the fast rebound. Incidentally, to be able to grow at 20% during that April to June period, at the peak of the pandemic, itself has demonstrated to the world that this is extraordinary what has happened in India. So I do believe that while we have to, like the rest of the world, suffer some consequences of the pandemic, the Honorable Prime Minister has converted this crisis into a huge opportunity for a better future for the people of India. I am confident, looking at the response I got, this is my first visit overseas after the pandemic. But truly, what I have experienced over the last 2 days and what is slated to happen today, prima facie, I can tell you that India has arrived. The Dubai Expo 2020 is an opportunity for us to showcase the India of tomorrow. The Honorable Prime Minister has already said that Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav is an opportunity for India to reflect on what we have achieved so far, but also imperative that we plan for the next 25 years so that the India that we want to see in 2047, when we complete 100 years of independence, is an India that every single Indian dreams of, a prosperous India, a world leader, an Atmanirbhar Bharat, and an India that would have provided for 1.35 billion Indians a better quality of life, ease of living, opportunities of growth, and we are all collectively working towards that vision of Prime Minister Modi.
So when you talk about 1.2 billion Indians, it includes the last man standing or the last woman standing on the line. You mentioned that in your Gandhi Jayanti message when you talked about, the Daridra Narayan, the poorest of the poor is your central focus of your government. But that's the very thing that the opposition, especially Rahul Gandhi, attacks, that your government talks about looking after the interests of the last man standing, last woman standing, but actually it is just lining the pockets of a few. What do you have to say to that?
Ma'am, I think it's almost become like a joke, some of the comments and tweets that we keep receiving from certain individuals in India, to the extent that their own party doesn't take it very seriously. To the extent that it has become a matter of ridicule within the party about what's happening. They are destabilizing their own governments almost by the day. And therefore, I think other than making some caustic comments, there is hardly any agenda of nation building, there's hardly any agenda of development, growth, and hardly any thoughts about how the country comes first before any politics. On the contrary, Prime Minister Modi over the last 7.5 years, through a series of initiatives, and I suspect if I were to start now, from 2014 till today, you would need a couple of hours for me to complete only the achievements of this government, to reach out to the poorest of the poor, to the last man at the bottom of the pyramid. Facilities which were unheard of, unimagined in India. While there are so many initiatives, including the Jan Dhan, the Aadhaar initiative, the JAM Trinity, which helped us take direct benefit transfer to every single household, eliminating middlemen, eliminating corruption, the world's largest healthcare program, providing 50 crore Indians with free healthcare. Nobody in the world has even tried to attempted to do that. Some who did failed. Taking cooking gas to every home in the country. A toilet providing dignity to our sisters and mothers and daughters. And I can keep going on and on, madam. But to my mind, it's this comprehensive thinking of ease of living, of providing a better quality of life for the people. It's converting the country from depending on doles to becoming Atmanirbhar, self-reliant. It's the thinking, the mindset change that India is an honest country now, open to business, open to work through transparency and equality for all. Opportunities galore. What Prime Minister yesterday also said, India is the land of opportunity, openness, and growth in the future. And I think that's what will provide jobs to the people, will provide better quality of life to the people. Ultimately, as the economy grows, as new and new businesses come in, as infrastructure develops, as more and more people get quality healthcare and education, I think the future is very bright for our country. The naysayers may continue to do so, but the result will only be that the people of India are already disenchanted with the leadership of the principal opposition party, will probably write them off at this rate.
They are the ones, in fact, who accuse you. Even you've listed out all these achievements, all the programs and policies. They say it's a lot of window dressing and it's a lot of fudging of data that you do, which is, you've been here in Dubai. You're the Sherpa for G20, and we hope to host, the G20 soon. So when that accusation comes that you're fudging data and you're doing window dressing, it does raise questions about, do you just brush it off? How does it impact on your decision-making abilities?
Madam, this is one government which puts out every data in public domain. every data transparently for all to go and check. And the very credibility of the people who make these allegations is so suspect that nobody in the world has taken them seriously, least of all the people of India. The current situation being what it is, I think the people know that they are getting into their bank account direct benefit transfer day in and day out on over 350 schemes. We have not given lame excuses and said that, oh, I send 100 rupees and 85 rupees is lost in the system to middlemen and corruption, and the poor will only get 15 rupees, and then lived with it, which the Congress did all their life. Their Prime Minister acknowledging corruption of that level. And the Sun today making accusations against a system which has shown the highest level of transparency. After all, the fact that 100 million farmers, 10 crore farmers are getting 6,000 rupees in their bank account every year is a matter of fact and record. It's a banking transaction. Where is the question of fudging the figures? The data comes from the states, validated by the states, including states run by the Congress or any other opposition party. When we say that we have given 5 crore connections of water, pipe drinking water, Nal Se Jal, the Jal Jeevan Mission, every data is on the website. It's on the dashboard for the world to see. I'll recall one incident to show you how confident we are on our data. And we don't need to talk to each other to reconfirm data. When the electrification program was going on of villages, every data was on the Garv mobile app. The Prime Minister didn't ask me as Power Minister whether Nagla Fatela or a small village in Uttar Pradesh, barely a couple of hours or 3 hours out of Delhi, was provided electrification under that program. He picked it up from the website. He said it on 15th August that the program is taking shape very well, and as an example he said a village few hours away from Delhi, 70 years didn't see electricity and it has now reached. But somebody got the fanciful idea that this had not actually happened, and there was a controversy sought to be made out of it. We were also amazed because we had the confidence that what we have done, we have done. And it was actually the states who were uploading the data. We were not doing anything. It was the state which would provide the data into the website that they have completed the electrification of that village. So we were quite amazed and we quickly deputed a team. The Samajwadi Party was in power in Uttar Pradesh at that time. And lo and behold, what did we find? We found that 6 or 8 officers of the state government had certified before loading onto the website that they had done this work, so many transformers, so much wiring and whatnot, and provided electrification to that village. They had certified it. On that certificate, it was reflected on the website. And what did we find? Electricity reached, legal electricity reached that village. They switched it on, did the reporting. The then state government under Mr. Akhilesh Yadav of the Samajwadi Party. And after the certification and the loading on the website, they once again cut that electricity so that they could give illegal Katia connections of the old days, which we used to hear about, and start taking bribes. That is what has changed under Prime Minister Modi. We have the confidence in our data, it's in public domain, but if a government like the Samajwadi government in UP seeks to give a connection and then close it and stop it and make money on the side, that's a sad reflection on how some state governments are running.
So when we talk about undermining, my last question, when we talk about undermining of state governments, undermining national security or national interests and state governments, the question of Punjab comes to mind because Captain Amrinder Singh has said that, any kind of instability in Punjab is not right. You also have the farmers' agitation going. In your perspective, how do you see the situation, the political instability currently? Whether, as BJP, you obviously would be happy to see what is happening in the Congress party. But as a nationalist, what do you see?
I'm sorry, I'd like to correct you. Even as BJP, I'm extremely deeply concerned about what's happening in the Congress party in Punjab, because national security for us comes first. You are aware that that our basic training and our basic understanding of public service is nation first, party next, self last. That is what we are all trained to think and work, and that's exactly how Prime Minister Modi's government and the BJP thinks and works. Any instability and the kind of concerns that Captain Amrinder Singh has expressed, the threats to national security on the borders of Punjab, are a matter of very deep concern for all of us, and any of the actions of the Congress party leading to this are truly a worry for the entire country. And I can only say that it is very, very deeply unfortunate that the Congress has gone to the level of compromising on national security for petty personal or political gains of a few people.
And do you think that it is in the national interest for a person like Captain Amrinder Singh to be taken back and put on the helm as far as the state is concerned, or do you think that the Congress party will solve its current situation with the current?
Well, I cannot comment on what the Congress party is planning to do or will do, but so far none of their actions seem to suggest that they have at all any concern for national security or the nation's interest. I have not yet heard any comment from any senior leader, probably except the G23, who's also expressed a similar concern about the happenings in Punjab. But the current leadership of the Congress seems to be completely disconnected with the concerns of the nation. And I do hope that they will reflect and care for our nation's security first.
Piyushji, last question. That, one is seeing these heartening pictures coming out of Kashmir of, people going out, there's music, there's lighting and at the Dal Lake. There's so much activity, a happy activity going on in Kashmir. Do you see investment coming in? Because, though there have been so much of talk about investments coming into the state, in real terms, there isn't that much of economic activity that one would hope for, or the pace that one would hope for. Do you see international interest at all in Kashmir?
Madam, at the outset, all the tourists who go there, all the people who are working there, I would urge you to go and talk to them. After all, when the tourist goes there, he spends on taxis, on horse rides, at the Dal Lake, on the Shikara, shopping on the Shikaras at the Dal Lake, which was such a joyful experience, going around the lovely valley in Kashmir and in Jammu, going to Vaishno Devi and without any fear. And all of this is providing economic impetus to the state. We have recently announced the industrial policy, and the Honorable Home Minister launched the registration portal only last month. And we are seeing a lot of interest. People who have approached the state, the Union Territory Administration for land and other facilities, and the kind of enthusiasm we are seeing all around is truly infectious. And I can only share with you as a little peek review that you're soon going to hear some good news from the United Arab Emirates also when it comes to investments in Jammu and Kashmir.
Thank you very much, Piyushji.
Namaste.
नमस्कार, मैं हूं मानक गुप्ता। अगर आपको हमारा ये वीडियो पसंद आया हो तो इसे लाइक और शेयर जरूर करें, और हाँ, हमें सब्सक्राइब और फॉलो करना ना भूलें ताकि आप देश और दुनिया की कोई खबर मिस ना करें। तो जुड़े रहिए हमारे साथ और देखते रहिए News 24।